For more, I'm joined by Franco Ordonez. He's a White House correspondent for McClatchy. Franco, if you don't mind, I want to actually start with Khashoggi and ask you about the president who's now acknowledging he believes he's dead, and he's promised very severe consequences if Saudi Arabia is responsible, but sort of slow walking this. What do you think we can expect? What kind of action can come from this?
I think that's, it's a fascinating situation, and that is the million-dollar question: is what can we expect? The president has given a lot of mixed messages about that. He did kind of slow walk this at first, raising questions. Now he's promising stiffer penalties. The kind of things that they could do sanctions, and that is something that has been talked about in Washington, at Pennsylvania Avenue, on both sides of Pennsylvania, on the Hill as well. Sanctioning all, as Saudi Arabian officials all the way up to the Crown Prince. It seems like it would be unlikely that the president would go that far, but he's certainly going to be pushed to go that far. And arguably, you can say he wouldn't be going as far as he has now without that public push and publicity about how outrageous this has been, not only outcry here in the United States, but internationally.
You mentioned that outcry. It looks like Saudi Arabia is prepared to blame General Ahmed al-Asiri for the alleged death. Do you think that move would take pressure from the Trump administration's relationship with King Salman and MBS?
I think it potentially could, relieve some of the pressure if it is shown to be a credible charge. But I think still there is going to be a lot more questions about what role the Crown Prince had. How did he have some responsibility? Did he potentially order some type of activity related to this? Did he know about it? What are the connections? And if, depending on what is found out and what is understood by the various investigations that are going on, I think that will still be a concern of many Americans as well as public and the global community.
Speaking of investigations, the human rights groups now are calling for a UN investigation. These UN investigations can take years. They're really intensive. It's not like you get fast results. So do you think that would satisfy the critics who are concerned that with these current investigations underway, we're not going to get the right answers?
I think sadly, this is an issue that could take years. It could take months of investigating. And frankly, one unfortunate thing of today's news cycle is there's going to be likely going to be some other issue that our attention is going to be focused on. We have the midterms coming up. There's already talk about, reports of Jared Kushner saying, just wait. This will potentially blow over, and the attention will dissipate. And I think that is one of the strategies that's being considered at the White House here in Washington. And we'll see if that happens. But, these investigations do take a long time. And so often, as is the case in these type of situations, there's so many questions that continue to be left unanswered. And that's a real big concern because Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist, and he was living in the United States, and he was a columnist for, Washington, D.C. paper, the Washington Post.
I want to also ask you and turn now to the campaign trail. We know the president was in Montana for a rally last night where he praised the Republican congressman who had actually pleaded guilty to assaulting a reporter. Here's what Mr. Trump had to say.
Any guy that can do a body slam, he's my kind. And we endorsed Greg very early, but I had heard that he body slammed a reporter. And he was way up. And I said, oh, this was like the day of the election or just before. And I said, oh, this is terrible. He's going to lose the election. Then I said, well, wait a minute. I know Montana pretty well. I think it might help him. And it did.
All right. Even if he knows Montana well and he thinks it's going to do well at the rally, why go there, especially with the backlash over the disappearance of that Washington Post journalist?
Absolutely. I just hate this. So many in our community in journalism are really, talking out against this. It's really unfortunate for the President of the United States to celebrate an attack against a journalist, especially one on American soil, seen as an attack on a free and independent media. And as you mentioned, not only would it be, not only is it a big deal at any time, but particularly now, at a time where Jamal Khashoggi has, been killed. At this moment, it's particularly jarring and concerning, I would say.
The president has actually accused Democrats of being a mob. He called Eric Holder's comments when Holder said, when they go low, we kick them. He called that dangerous. Does this fall into the same category of rhetoric?
It is right up there with the rhetoric that, the president is known for. Look, this is a strategy of the president of the United States. We had Corey Lewandowski talk to a few of us reporters a few months ago, and he explained to us that, look, one of the best skills that the president has is to create a foil to run against. One of those foils is the media, the fake media, as he points it. And that is a thing to boost support from his base. Another one, obviously, is immigration. You played a couple clips from the rally. The two points that get the largest applause lines, one is immigration, that often does, and the second one is attacking the media. It's really a sad state right now.
You mentioned immigration. The same time we know the president is making immigration, as you mentioned, a really key focus in these weeks before midterms. I want to play you that bite on immigration.
It's going to be an election of the caravan. You know what I'm talking about. As you know, I'm willing to send the military to defend our southern border if necessary. All caused because of the illegal immigration onslaught brought by the Democrats because they refuse to acknowledge or to change the laws. They like it.
Franco, you wrote about this. You just spoke about it on CBSN, how this kind of language on immigration really rallies his base. But do you think that this also works to help other Republican candidates, especially those in really tough races?
That's certainly what the president is pushing. He wants more Republicans to use this as a political tool to leverage their support in their markets. Now, some Republicans have been a bit reluctant to do that. I think in the back of their mind, they're thinking about this family separation policies of the spring that really created a huge uproar here in Washington and across the country, but also in many states in Senate, particularly in the Senate races. There are Republicans who are embracing this more. It's certainly an issue that the president wants to push repeatedly. Not only in Montana, in Nevada, in Arizona, he is advocating for this to be a bigger issue. There's really no surprise why. It was a key issue when he was elected in 2016. We talked just a minute ago about the applause that he gets from the base. It is definitely something that really stirs up his supporters. And another thing is, he's also, from Democratic strategists who I've spoken to, they see it as an effective strategy to kind of turn responsibility or shift responsibility away from himself, considering that many of his own immigration policies have failed to stem the tide of illegal immigration. You pointed out the fight earlier yesterday between John Kelly and Bolton. That was because there was increasing numbers of illegal immigration that they have not been able to get a handle on, despite many, many promises to do so.
And one of the strategies the president has taken is also to threaten Mexico if they don't stop the caravan of migrants heading north. We know Secretary Pompeo is meeting with Mexican officials today. Do you think his threats are really being met by a strong response in Mexico?
I think they're absolutely being listened to. The president has used these kind of threats to kind of bend other nations' leaders to his will, or to the United States' will. Certainly, Mexico, as you played the clip earlier, Mexican authorities are looking into this closely. The Republican strategists that I spoke to said, who felt like the messages that Trump released yesterday via Twitter were not necessarily really directed at his voters, but they said it was more directed at Mexico to kind of turn up the action and warn them that they really need to take some responsibility for this. They want Mexico to prevent these migrants from coming through their country on their way to the United States. Sometimes they give them transit visas so they can travel through on a temporary basis. It is certainly an issue. But, you know, President Trump is also threatening to take funding, financial funding from Central American countries who receive funding from the United States, and that would be very difficult to do. It's hard to prevent a country from allowing, a democratic country from allowing its citizens to leave, but that's certainly what the push is from this administration.
All right, Franco Ordonez, thank you very much for joining us, Franco.